Good afternoon. I hope everyone out there is feeling absolutely well and no one's catching that awful coronavirus. And I hope you also had a lovely Easter. As you've seen on, what day is it today? As you saw on Tuesday evening, I have a new toy. This bad boy right here. My new macro lens. And that is what I'm going to be doing today, funnily enough, is I'm going to go around the house and I'm going to find textures. I'm going to photograph textures today. I'm going to try and make some abstracty type, minimalist, maybe images of things with texture using a macro lens. This thing. So yeah, again, something I don't normally do. There's no mountains, there's no rivers, no wildlife, none of that. But I've got a new toy and I've got the ambition to give it a crack. So first things first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a wander around the house and go see what we can find. There must be something interesting to photograph. So let's see what happens. So, welcome to the downstairs bathroom. Didn't think I'd ever bring people in here while vlogging, but on this wall right here is lots and lots of shells, and shells always have interesting shapes, and I'm pretty sure most of these shells have been collected because they have interesting shapes. So like, look at this delicate little thing. That is super cool, and I reckon done the right way, maybe like that, you could get a really interesting shot. So I think we're going to use this one. And then up here, look at this bad boy. Just look at all that texture up and down that shell. There are so many different things I think you could do with that shell. So this one's coming with us. And which other one? Ooh, this one I think is particularly pretty, very delicate. I just love the colours of the purples. I think this one will look really nice. It's super zoomed as well. Maybe this in the mouth, maybe on that spiral at the end, who knows. But I think I'm going to play with them 4 shells to start off with, see what we can create, maybe go into black and white. I don't really know what we're going to create, but experiment. So I will see you back upstairs. So I've got my shells, now I just need to work out my setup. One thing I did get was this black t-shirt. I think it'll make it a lot better because it'll give that contrast for the shapes to bounce off. And when I come into black and white, it just means the background will be dark, be really dark. So I'll be able to really try and make them shapes here stand out so much more, which, fingers crossed, is going to look good. Now I've got to work out this tripod setup. So I've worked out how close I want that. One thing I am going to involve is this beast. Wow, look at that, I can control it, turn it into a nice cool light, bring it up into a nice warm light. So I've got plenty I can do with that. So I'll have a little play around with this as well, using different lights. But most of all, it's just going to be trying to get that abstracty type shapes. That's what I'm aiming for today. So I've got my tripod set up, I've got my black background and my subjects. What I need to do now is work out a way of positioning my subjects, making them stand how I want them to stand. And I had a little idea about this. So my thinking was I would get one book, put it underneath the t-shirt. I'd get another book, put it underneath the t-shirt. So hopefully it's not too distracting. But from this, I should be able to hold these shells together. Just like so. Now a little bit of a reposition of the camera. So I think I've got the scene that I like to start off with. I'm going to flip into camera mode so you can see what I'm looking at. So what I've got is I've got this little bit of shell coming in the corner here, and I really like the way it comes through the scene, just like this. I really like that. And I like all these different shapes. So if I turn this, you can see it all coming into shape, coming sharp, dropping out. And I can really play around with it. And look at that. And I think in a black and white, this will look particularly good. It's a noisy lens, this new one. So I'm going to have a little play around now and see what I can create. So here's the first shot, just here. And that's it full colour that you're looking at. And I don't know if it's the lights that are around, but it gives a really yellowy tone. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and cool that down by adding a little bit of fill light. And for the fill light, I'm going to keep it down in this nice low cool setting, and then see how that affects the scene. So I'm not changing any of the settings. I'll lower my exposure a little bit. Fire that off. So I actually like that a little bit more, because if you look at this one and then you look at this one here, you can see how the colours are totally different. The yellows are actually brought out more, and there's like more of a separation between different shades because it's not all just caught by that yellow tinge. And for the first shot, I think that's pretty sweet. I'm going to move it around a little bit more and see how I find the next little bit. So for this next shot, what I quite like about it is how I've got this little bit, and it is going to be in the corner within the image, and I like the way this comes round here. And what I'm thinking I'm going to do with this shot is I'm not just going to simply capture it as it is, but I'm actually going to do a focus stack from that curl all the way around to this point here, which is going to be interesting really, because I've never done macro photography, but I think that will help tell that story of that wiggle. So this is what it's actually going to look like on the back of my camera. You can see I've got that swirl coming round this way, coming out, and then I've got these ridges coming around here. And what I really like about this shot is how I've still got the black around the outside of the shell, giving it real depth, but you can barely tell that it's a shell. And I think that's one of the nicest things about this. So the settings I've got for this is I've gone up to f10, so it's really improving my depth of field within this shot. And there's something about this shot that I really like. So I focused on that first part, that top part, the one that's near the left hand corner, and there's the first shot. And then I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to change where I focused to that bottom curl. I think it's just going to be a 2-part focus stack really, because I really want them edge parts to be super soft as well. And then what I'll do is I'll bring them into Photoshop, and I may even do a video on this, maybe not this, but like a little bit more of a complicated focus stack. But I'll get that top ridge this way and then that lower ridge that way. I'll align the pictures and then blend them together, and then because I really want the edges, the very edges, to stay nice and soft, because that looks really nice in a black and white, and I think most of these are going to get converted to black and white. But But I think that is enough for this shell. So I finally got the next shell all sorted out, and I'm not too sure about this one. I'm not as excited about this one as I was the last one, and I will show you what I'm looking at. So what I've got is I've got the very center of the spiral of the swirl right here, and I've set it so it's coming out, and I've not focused on that very center point. I felt like it was more important to have that first spiral sharp, so I've focused on that first spiral, and then that obviously is getting larger and larger and larger as it comes out. And I don't know how this is going to look. I don't know how it's going to look, but it's going to be interesting to give it a crack and see what it looks like. At the moment I've got quite a lot of top light coming through the window just over here, so it's quite bright on the top and dark on the bottom, and I think that might help add to that image. I've slightly underexposed it, and I've gone down to f9 for this because I want that shallower depth of field. I don't want this all in focus. I think that's going to help add to that abstract type feel. So it's on half a second, f9, ISO 100, firing that off. And there it is. This is the shot that's straight out of camera, unedited. Boom, there it is. And it might go black and white. I might stick with a colour theme. I quite like the fact that the top layer up here is lighter than it is down here. I think that helps add to that contrast. And I'm conscious of the fact that this vlog's already going to be pretty long, so I'm going to move on to the next shot. For this next shot, I'm trying to do something slightly different again. Before I was taking shells and I was trying to make them not look like shells. This time, the shell's so pretty on its own, and it works so well with that dark background. I don't want to do that. I want to make it the shell. That's the story. It's not the shape and the patterns that are in the shell. The story is how pretty this shell is. So what I've done is I've filled the scene with it, and I've left a dark space all the way around the outside. So let's have a little look in camera mode. Now remembering that this is going to be wider than what you're seeing right now. So I've got this little point here down in the bottom left hand third, and I think that's going to help tell that story so well. And I love the way the spiral comes round and out. And what I might do when I get this into post, I might dodge and burn that and really try and bring that element out. Really try and bring it out. And again, I really like the way it's lit on this top half here, and it's got a shadow on this bottom half. I think that really adds to the image. Settings for this, super simple. I'm going to keep it on f9 because I really quite like that f number, that depth of field I'm getting from this. It's going to be on half a second, ISO 100, just like last time, and then firing that off. And then this is the shot right here. That's straight out of camera. No editing, nothing done to it. All the shots that I'm capturing today, I'm going to wait until I get to the end and I'll show you all the edited ones. But it's this lens, quite impressed with it. So I had a little bit of a play around with this shell, and I think I'm going to finish the vlog while photographing this one, because this one was my favourite out of the 3 shells that I photographed. It might have been nice to shoot down into here, but I didn't really get that far. But I really enjoyed this one, and there's just something about this shell. It's got so many shapes on there that it doesn't even really seem like a shell. It starts to look like something completely different, which I really liked. But as for my first experiment with a macro lens, I think this has gone pretty well. And I hope you've enjoyed the video, the more experimentation, bringing you along for me having a little play around with this kind of stuff. I think it was interesting. And it might have gone well, it might have gone terribly. But if nothing else, it was interesting. For me anyway. Hopefully for you. If it has been though, leave a little comment below, give me a little thumbs up, maybe even hit that subscribe button. Because while we're all locked inside, I imagine that lens is going to be getting some use. But yeah, that's all for me this week, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.
If you talk all the time, you'll never hear what anybody else has to say. And therefore all you'll have to talk about is your own conversation. The same is true for people who think all the time. That means, when I use the word think, talking to yourself, subvocal conversation, the constant chit-chat of symbols and images and talk and words inside your skull. Now, if you do that all the time, you'll find that you've nothing to think about except thinking. And just as you have to stop talking to hear what others have to say, you have to stop thinking to find out what life is about. And the moment you stop thinking, you become into immediate contact with the unspeakable world.